What is up guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I've got what might be the best looking PC I have ever built. This system features a Core i5-9600K, brand new RX 2070 and a load of RGB goodness from Corsair. So let's dive in and take a look. Today's video was made possible by SCDkey, a great place to source game and software keys for a load of platforms including Steam, Origin, Uplay and prepaid PSN and Xbox cards. Pick up a copy of Windows 10 and use the code GeekaWhat at checkout for an exclusive 10% discount. Get started at the links in the description below. For me, this build really excels at 1440p on the highest settings, whilst consistently hitting 60 FPS and well above. Whether it be the latest Call of Duty Black Ops 4 or Battlefield 5 titles, or slightly older games such as GTA 5, Overwatch, Just Cause 3, this build is going to smash them all out of the park. 4K gaming is also more than possible, and Iyama kindly sent out one of their latest and greatest 4K gaming panels for me to take a look at. With a nice fast response time and of course that 4K screen resolution, it provides a fantastic immersive experience, and I'll link it with all of my other recommended peripherals for this build in the description below. I'll also link in the description below my Instagram account, which you can follow for the latest behind the scenes photos, and I'll also be giving away some Steam keys on my Insta stories. You do not want to miss out. Now though, for the parts I selected and why, and kick it off as always with the CPU. The Intel Core i5-9600K is the latest and greatest in Intel's mainstream i5 lineup. They're actually kind enough to send this bad boy out, so big thank you to Intel for that, and this CPU from our testing is pretty special. The standout feature for me is the fast 3.7 GHz base clock speed with a turbo boost of up to 4.7 GHz. That's some crazy speeds and gives this some killer single-threaded performance. That single-threaded performance is really appreciated by a lot of the AAA titles. Whilst AMD probably win out on the value side of things in terms of having the most cores and most threads for your money, a lot of games simply aren't optimised for that. They prefer one fast core, and that's exactly what the CPU provides, not to mention some great overclocking headroom. For the CPU cooler in this build, I opted for the Corsair H100i Platinum, which you can see sitting in the sea of hardware behind me. Now, unfortunately, Intel's unlocked lineup of processors don't include stock coolers, unlike the fantastic units included with the AMD counterparts. That's not to bother in a build of this magnitude, as I'll be picking up a third-party cooler anyway, but if you're on a bit more of a budget, it is a notable downside. Back to the Corsair H100i Platinum though, I actually reviewed it not too long ago and you can find that video in the card section here. I was suitably impressed by this cooler then, and even more so now. The addressable RGB water block and included whisper quiet fans which are on behind me and you just cannot hear. I mean, listen, exactly, is really quite fantastic. Aesthetically, it's superb, the installation's really easy, and whilst it is a little bit pricier than units from Deepcool or Cooler Master, it is actually of a lower price point than some of ASUS's latest coolers, or even units from Thermaltake. All in all, well balanced unit and a really nice cooler. For the motherboard in this build, I went for a brand new unit from ASUS. It's the Z390M Pro gaming motherboard on the TUF lineup. The TUF lineup of motherboards from ASUS have got a really unique aesthetic, pretty colour neutral, but with some really nice kind of unique accents here and there. I've got to give a big shout out to Overclockers, who I'll link in the description below, for kindly hooking me up with this motherboard at the last minute. You guys are saviours. It's a really nice motherboard, gives you the widest feature set with of course support for overclocking, 4 RAM DIMM slots, USB 3.1 Type-C and a really conclusive and solid front panel. Reliability is top notch and the motherboard BIOS is what you'd expect from ASUS. Really simple, really easy to use and no complaints here. For the memory in this build for the RAM, I selected a fairly new kit from Corsair. This is their Vengeance RGB Pro. In particular, this is the white kit, which I think looks phenomenal in this build. And I love how the design of this thing is pretty minimal, putting a focus on the RGB element with that pure white heat spreader design. I really think that RGB RAM adds a really nice dynamic to pretty much any system, and the fact this blends in perfectly with the colour scheme is a big bonus. It comes in a range of speeds, though this 3000 MHz kit should be more than enough to get you started, with plenty of overclocking headroom in your motherboard BIOS. For the storage configuration in this build, I went for my usual hard drive and SSD combination. A 2000 gig, so 2TB Seagate Barracuda hard drive, comes in at 7200 RPM speed in the normal 3.5-inch form factor. You can jump up to the 3 or 4TB variant if you're after some more storage or add in a second drive later on down the line. For the fast SSD storage in this build, an M.2 drive is going to cover you nicely. This is ADATA's latest SX8200 Pro. This particular model is 256GB, but I would recommend jumping up to the 512 for a little bit more room. You're going to install your Windows applications and your most frequently used games and files, and also give a bit of redundancy with this drive. It's going to make the system feel super duper snappy, but isn't going to fill up all too quickly. All in all, it isn't a bad price either, and the M.2 interface nicely alleviates that SATA bottleneck. For the graphics card in this build, I know this is the one you've all been waiting for. This is the MSI RTX 2070 Armor. This is a just incredible looking graphics card that fits perfectly in this build. Officially, it's slightly too long, but it does fit without too many problems. There's no sort of ghetto solutions going on here. And in the middle of MSI's lineup, you get some pretty good price to performance figures. I'd have liked to have seen a bit more RGB included on this card. There is some, don't get me wrong, but otherwise the design is phenomenal. That black and white colour scheme fits perfectly inside this Corsair 280X. It facilitates gaming at 1440p as I said, high settings 60fps, as well as a bit of 4K gaming if you're prepared to tone some of the settings down very slightly. For the case in this build, for the component that kind of houses all these components together, I went for Corsair's new 280X, and honestly, this is like maybe my favourite case ever. This particular white model looks stunning. The tempered glass panels just incredible and they complement the chassis amazingly. Even the dust filters add a unique edge. You can get it in the RGB or non-RGB variants. I of course tricked it out and made it look phenomenal, and I cannot advise enough that you do so. It's got a really unique 2-compartment design which separates your power supply and your drives from the motherboard and GPU area to really help control temperatures. It does make the chassis nice and compact, though it is a little wider than a lot of mid-tower ATX chassis, which is worth bearing in mind. All in all, with micro ATX motherboard support, support for GPUs of up to 300, or in this case 309mm, you can't go too far wrong, and I will link it in the description below. For the power supply in this build, for the final kind of main part, this one's pretty exciting as far as power supplies goes. It's Corsair's new RM850X in white. They do also do this PSU in a 750 watt variant, which is probably a little bit less overkill than the unit I selected. But it fits perfectly with this chassis. It looks really nice in terms of its colour scheme and design, with an 80+ gold certification, fully modular interface, and semi-fanless operation for quiet performance. It ticks all the right boxes. The more standout feature for me though is the inclusion of individually sleeved white power supply cables. This whole kit is something you'd normally pay like $70 for aftermarket, and they set the build off so phenomenally. Honestly, really great move by Corsair here. If you'd like to buy any of the parts mentioned, they will be linked in the description below. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a big old like and get subscribed if you aren't already. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next GeekaWhat video.
You know things can never be the same.